Hello everyone, welcome to Celestial Bodies, a place to wonder in awe about the planets above. So let's take a look at how the planets are dancing this week. This week the main focus is going to be, well for me, is going to be the full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces. This cosmic event will take place on Wednesday, early hours of Wednesday morning, and it will mark the first of a series of eclipses across the Pisces and Virgo axis of your chart. So we call this period of time in astrology eclipse season, or some people call it the eclipse portal, this space between the lunar and solar eclipses that happens twice a year. So eclipse season occurs when the new moon, or in this case the full moon, happens near the nodes of the moon. And these eclipses can often sort of signify powerful shifts. They bring about sometimes major changes or endings and new beginnings, as well as almost like unexpected plot twists. And this week's full moon lunar eclipse will affect the area of your chart that corresponds to Pisces and Virgo, depending on your rising sign. So if we think back to sort of from 2023 till now, the eclipses have been happening in the axis of Aries to Libra, with the north node being in Aries and the south node being in Libra. And so now that we're actually having a full moon lunar eclipse in Pisces, it's marking the first of this shift. So it's not going to shift immediately, but this marks the kind of first part of that shift. So I thought it'd be interesting to talk about that today. And so I'm going to do a little set of horoscopes almost for each rising sign at the end of this reading. But to set the tone for the cosmic event, I'd like to offer a deeper meditation on this full moon energy by reading you the Chandra symbol for 25 degrees of Pisces, which is the degree that this full moon happens upon. So the zodiac, each zodiac sign is made up of 30 degrees from 0 to 29. And these Chandra symbols are almost like a description, a channeled image for each of those degrees. I find them really insightful as a way of sort of delving into the vibration and getting a sort of poetic feeling for the moment. So I'm going to read you the Chandra symbol, which is for 25 degrees of Pisces, which is, I'm actually reading 26 degrees Pisces because you always round up the number whenever you're reading Chandra symbols. So that's just a little note in case you want to look this up. So this symbol reads the Aurora Borealis, the brink of the infinite, tapping directly into realms of existence beyond the physical. You sense all pervasively the multiple frequencies of all that is really here, having a vast grasp on what is possible and of what is asking to be brought in, while extended very far into regions others miss. Feeling, hearing, tasting the power of spirit in action, half mesmerised and half supercharged to get everybody in on it somehow. Perhaps retreating to more traditional versions of the infinite path, if frightened by a lack of understanding coming in. Communing with the mysteries and absolutely at home with those places others find strange. The inside becomes all, the outside virtually transparent to the light within. So I think that this beautifully captures the dreamlike, mystical nature of Pisces. This full moon is also pretty close to the planet Neptune, and that symbol of the Aurora Borealis, I think that's how you say it, I hope you could see some of that almost in this crystal, really taps into that Piscean energy, this thin veil between worlds, the magic of unknown, the sort of timeless quality, and the power of the spirit flowing through all things. It makes me think of something that's kind of been occurring for me this week, where I started rereading this book called The Aleph by Paulo Coelho. And as I was reading the book, it was having this effect on me where I felt like the book was answering the questions I've had come up, or the things that I've been worrying about or thinking about during the day. And then what happened one night is I started reading it, and I've read this book in the past, I was rereading it, and I'd underlined this little passage, and the little passage that I'd underlined was really talking to me now in a very sort of profound way. I felt like it was the thing that I really needed to hear. And so it had this timeless quality of like my past self talking to my present self, giving me the message from the past. It was just really in keeping with this whole sort of nature of the spirit moving through all things in a timelessness. So that is some of the nature of this, the quality, I think, of this full moon moment, where the sun is in Virgo and the moon is in Pisces. But what I wanted to also do to sort of balance that out was to actually read to you the Chandra symbol also for the degree in which the sun is at, which is 25 degrees of Virgo. So I've rounded it up and I'm reading you the 26th degree, and this one reads, an old man counting gold coins, getting your bearings, determining your limits, and finding a reality fix, making sure that everything is there, checking out the manifest details over and over again, coming down to earth and becoming sober, straight and clear. You are overwhelmingly convinced that there must come this cleaning up and clearing up. Sick and tired of pretense and hype, hungry to get down to basics, and somewhat hooked on the quantitative intelligence. Blurred distinctions intent upon being viable, correct, and self-sufficient. So that gives you a little balance to that more dreamlike nature of Pisces, and it gives that kind of Virgoan need for practicality and grounding and detail-orientated focus, which is also a part of this moment. Because as the sun is in Virgo, it's also making this kind of grand trine to Pluto and Neptune. So there's a lot going on there with the sun too. So it's asking us to also ground this in reality, ground ourselves in reality, especially because, as well as having Neptune in Pisces, for the past year, maybe year and a half, we've also had Saturn in Pisces, bringing us that element of structure and grounding to the Piscean space. So overall, I feel this watery Piscean moon also feels to me like it's going to be a deeply emotional time, where you may literally be flooded with emotions. I know personally I've been feeling a bit like blah this last week. And so allowing myself to actually have a good cry was very beneficial. So if you've also been feeling this kind of build up of a weird sort of like, maybe even like dampening of your spirits and your energy, maybe allowing yourself to speak it out, to even cry it out, might also be of benefit during this build up of this energy. But to come back to now, to talk about the shifting of the eclipses and what the themes could be coming up over the next few years as these eclipses shift to this axis. I wanted to let you know how this eclipse cycle works a little bit. So eclipses follow an 18-year cycle, meaning that we've seen a similar series of eclipses in Pisces and Virgo about 18 years ago. So looking back at this past cycle can give you hints about the themes that might resurface now. So think back to 2006 to about 2008, approximately that time period. The North Node was in Pisces, highlighting that axis of your chart. And then if you think back again to between about the end of 2015 to 2017, there were a similar set of eclipses, but this time the North Node was in Virgo. So we look back 9 years and we look back 18 years, but where the North Node will shift. But it will still be affecting that same kind of pair of houses in your chart. So reflecting on what was happening in your life during those times, it might provide insight into the current cycle. The themes won't be identical, but there might be a running thread of lessons or developments that continue now. So you want to ask yourself what was happening approximately 18 years ago, 2006 to like 2008, and then 9 years ago, 2015 to about May of 2017. And what major changes, realisations or shifts did you experience back then? And you may find that there will be similar themes emerging now, giving you a chance to reflect and heal or finish something that started then. And it's, again, I say, it's not like history is going to repeat itself, but it might rhyme. You might find similar themes coming up now. So what I thought I'd do to kind of give you a little horoscope for each rising sign, and maybe a little nudge in the direction of what to be thinking about when you're looking back in time, as I was going to do horoscopes for each rising sign. So to know your rising sign, you need to know your time of birth. And so if you're not aware of your rising sign, I'll put a link down in the description of this video of like a site where you can go and put in your date, time and place of birth, and it will bring up your chart. And the rising sign is the sign that occupies the first house. And so when you look at the circle, the first house will be on the very left hand side, and so there'll be a little number 1 in that house, and that will be then whatever symbols attached to that will be your rising sign. Or they call it the ascendant, the ASC. And so you have to then check what the symbol means if you don't know what the symbol means, but obviously I'll be showing you the symbols as we go through as well. And then you'll know what your rising sign is. And that might come as a surprise to some of you, and it's quite nice to find out what your rising sign is. So let me just move these out of the way. And we'll start with Pisces, as that's where the full moon is. So we'll pop that there. We'll start with Pisces. And so, if you are, let's pop this on top. If you are a Pisces rising, then this full moon will move across. We'll start to highlight this full moon lunar eclipse will start to highlight your 1st and your 7th house. So these eclipses will start to take place across the 1st and the 7th house. And this may mean that themes around your identity, your health, even your appearance may start to take more centre stage. So this could mark a period of almost like profound personal transformation where you're working on yourself more. Shifts in maybe how you see yourself, and then correspondingly how you relate to others, and that's how these two houses work out. We've got the self. The first house is the place, the most me space of the chart. The 7th house is more the we space, and so there may be a more draw to work on yourself during this up and coming period. So that's for my Pisces risings. If you are an Aries rising, then the eclipses that are coming up will start to highlight your 12th and your 6th house. So this is going to bring more focus onto your sort of inner world and maybe some of your subconscious patterns that kind of, they sort of run, but maybe we're not always conscious of them. So it might be a time where you feel more drawn to exploring spiritual practices, or practices that slow you down and ask you to, in a sense, listen more rather than being so outward in the world. So you might be working on that kind of like inner world more than being so outwardly focused during this time. And it might be a time of a lot of richness coming from that 12th house place. If you are a Taurus rising, then these eclipses start to bring up 11th and 5th house topics. So you may find yourself during this time drawn to new communities, to new friendships or alliances forming that support your goals and your dreams. And the focus may be also on creative expression in children and the ways of bringing more joy into your life. This axis might go hand in hand, but you may find yourself drawn to be part of more of a kind of a group or a calling or an organisation during this time, either being part of one or setting up one. But you're going to be pulled into community during this time. It's going to be where your energy might flow to during this next season of eclipses occurring over that axis. If you are a Gemini rising, this brings eclipse energy over this next period of time to your 10th and your 4th house. And so you might be during this time more focused on your career, more focused on how you're seen in the world and your long-term goals and even like your public image. This might be a period of time where that is where a lot of your energy is being drawn towards. Possibly, and how this creates, if this comes up and if the 10th house topics are more in the forefront, then how does that also affect home life? How do these things balance out? How does one affect the other? It might be a period of time where both of these houses are active in a sense, where you're drawn, but you're maybe perhaps drawn more to be working on your career. As well as that, for Gemini risings, you also have Jupiter going through your 1st house at the moment. So there is more, you've been having, Jupiter in your 1st house, your sense of like identity going through this more expansive, having this more expansive energy within it, or even like busy energy within it. And then how does that also correspond to how your career or what you're doing out there in the world? So it's more of an outward push, perhaps coming up for Gemini risings, or a shift or a change in that area of your life. For Cancer risings, this is going to move these nodes to your 9th and 3rd house. So with the North node moving into the 9th house, and the South node in the 3rd, this might be influencing your belief systems, and you may start to feel the urge to broaden your horizons, maybe through travel, maybe through new learnings, exploring new ways of seeing the world, and you might find yourself thirsty for a new kind of like overall outlook or new philosophies for living. That might be where you're drawn towards. This could be through travel, but it could also just be through, the books you are reading or the philosophies that you're exploring, the way that you're actually living those things. Because you're going to be drawn towards maybe living them. Maybe you've been going through a period of restructuring that area of your life with Saturn being there. Maybe you've been going through a period of almost like certain worldviews or ways of seeing the world being broken down. And so maybe as the eclipses start to happen here, the new thing is going to emerge of how you want to, what new adventure you want to go on, in a sense. And for my Leo risings, this is moving the eclipse energy into your 8th house and your 2nd house. So the topics that will be brought up here might revolve around this sense of shared resources, or the way in which you meld with another and you join sort of forces. This could be joint bank accounts, but it equally could just be joint ideas, in a sense. Joining forces, merging with another in some way, might become more of the theme of the lifetime, with the North node being there. So you can think back to the periods of sort of 2015 to 17, where it was actually the North node was more in your 2nd house then, of my own, me, myself and I, my own personal worth. And then when you went back to the sort of 2007-8, that was maybe more a time of this melding. So again, we're back to this melding now at this junction. And so, yeah, it might be a time of investments or merging with another in some way, or of things joining in some way, and all that brings up, and all the entanglement of that. That's from my Leo risings. We're actually going to go on to Virgo risings now. That card was down there. So for my Virgo risings, this full moon will start to light up this area of the chart corresponding to the 7th and the 1st house. So for Virgos, this is bringing up the topics around partnership more. That's more where the North Node is. We're drawn to that area of the chart. So this is more of the we space. So naturally, if you're focused more on the we space, it does move you away slightly from the self space, because we're moving into companionship maybe, we're moving into partnership, we're moving into this balance of not just my needs but others' needs as well, and what that all brings into your life, and the beauty of seeing yourself actually mirrored in the other. This will be more, and obviously in this card it's got wedding rings there, and but potentially there could be that, but it doesn't need to always, 7th house doesn't need to always be like romantic relationships. This could be in friendship and business, but there is this sort of maybe like this more draw into that area of the life for my Virgo risings. Moving on to Libra. Libra risings, the North Node will move into the 6th house. The South Node will then be moving towards the 12th house. So going forward next year into this energy, you may be moving into a time where your habits, your work, health habits, your day-to-day life may be taking more priority, and you may be looking at that more. So that may manifest as those things in your life, becoming more. You perhaps taking on a new job, new responsibilities, and how that shifts your day-to-day life. Or it might be you restructuring in that area as well. As well as that, you have had Saturn going through that house for a while now. So maybe you've actually been going through that already for Libra risings. That sort of is a kind of chop wood, carry water sort of a house, the 6th house. And so maybe you have been diligently restructuring and getting more responsible and more aware of the habits of your life, or the day-to-day of your life. And so maybe the North Node coming here is actually going to be that moment where it shifts and it starts feeling like it's shifting into place. The shift happens at this point. So that'll be an interesting thing to sort of track, and how by making that shift you may start to release the South Node in the 12th, releasing maybe some limiting beliefs that we all have, and that when the 12th house is activated, there is this chance to maybe shift through some of them. For Scorpio risings, this is going to move into the eclipses will start to move into this coming year, your 5th and your 11th house. So there may be a draw to having more fun and more playfulness in your life. And this is quite interesting as well, because for Scorpios, you've had Saturn going through the fun house. So serious Saturn, like serious fun, going through that house. With the nodes coming there, again, it might mark that shift where you start to actually have more fun, or seeing fun as an important thing to have in your life. And then how that fun brings you in contact with more groups and communities, how maybe taking up different hobbies actually brings you different friends or communities into your life as we feel into those two groups. Some maybe let go for other new ones to come in, perhaps. It makes me think, with this Scorpio rising, it makes me think a little bit of like planning in the play. Like I think there's this philosophy of like planning on a Friday. So you sort of plan your week on a Friday, so you actually have to structure in fun. And so that, because Saturn's been co-present here, it might be that you may have to structure in fun, but essentially what you want is more creativity, more fun with your children. The fifth house is also a house of children if you have them, so you might be drawn more to the children. There might be big shifts happening in this area of your life, like moving towards this more creative space for Scorpio risings. And for Sagittarius risings, this will move so let me move Scorpio. Oh, where's Sagittarius? There it is. Sagittarius risings, the explorer. This will move the nodes into your 4th and 10th house. So with the nodes moving there, this first little glimpse of it on this full moon, but almost bringing it up a little bit, but this is moving into next year. With the nodes moving there, the places highlighted are going to be the home and the career. So those two areas of the chart, but there may be this more draw to find a stable base from which to grow your career from. So homes may change or be renovated, but the roots and the foundation may become important to you. That may be a place that you're shifting. There might be new beginnings in that place, some perhaps endings. And then how it makes me think, for some Sagittarius risings, how sometimes that change, that even just like changing the energy around your home actually makes you perhaps more productive in how you want to go, how you want to be seen in the world. It makes me think of kind of like feng shuiing your space for especially your sort of career space and how that has an effect on it. But also that thing of like, if you do move, so say some of you do move home, how that almost refuels the way because if it's a big move, then maybe you're moving job as well, but how that refuels that area of career and how you're seen in the world as well, and how these work, how these interact together, may become more of a theme going into next year for Sagittarius. And actually we should be on Capricorn, sorry. So for Capricorn risings, these eclipses move to your 3rd and your 9th house. Oh, that's a little fine. So your 3rd and your 9th house. This is, for me, this is giving me the feeling of, and this isn't for all of you, I'm just trying to give you a feel of it. You've perhaps been away on a pilgrimage, or you've been travelling the world. You know the book The Alchemist, where he has to leave where he's from to come back to realise that the gold is back actually where he's from. This has given me kind of that feel for Capricorn risings. So you've been travelling, you've been learning from other cultures perhaps, or you've been out there exploring, but the 3rd house is drawing you back to the locale, to your local neighbourhood in a sense, and the richness within that perhaps. Because the 3rd house can also signify siblings as well, and almost that gives me that feeling as well. If you came back, you might then reconnect with the siblings. For some of you, that might be meaning that, but this reconnection with what is local, what is perhaps part of your early childhood, or your local language, or your, I don't know, it's something of a feeling of curiosity and growth that also comes sometimes or the integration that has to occur when you come home from a big learning. So that's the feel that I'm getting for Capricorn risings, that may be the theme of this next little period of eclipse seasons as we go into next year. And finally, for Aquarius risings. Aquarius Risings brings these eclipses now to your 2nd and your 8th house. So for Aquarius Risings, it's giving me this feeling of how there's going to be more focus and more energy and more of your attention on how do I resource myself. It's going to take centre stage. You might, in a more deeper way, have the energy to look at your relationship to money. And so this might mean, you know, like there are various courses you can do on that. But you might be just looking at the way you resource yourself more, and you might find yourself more interested in working on how you like value yourself, how you're rewarded for what it is you do, because money's just like this kind of like energy exchange, right? And part of it, the energy exchange, is to do with how you feel about that energy exchange. So you might just be more into those topics, focusing on setting up your own sense of like in a way security and value for yourself, and then how that obviously ends up being perhaps money in the end. But that's where I see perhaps your energy. You're going to go and maybe do like a deep dive on that topic, perhaps going forward, and see some shifts in that area of the life. And so after hearing all of your rising sign topics brought up, it gives you an idea about what might come up in regards to these eclipses going into the next few years. So again, I encourage you to reflect back to those periods of time I mentioned and to see if you can kind of like join the dots. So it's like joining the dots, and although the themes won't be exactly the same, and the same thing's not going to happen again. So if you look back to those times as well and like, oh God, I don't want to revisit 2015, 2017, I mean, that's what I'm kind of thinking. But it's not going to be an exact replica, because in a sense, these cycles, they are spiraling. And so you're different now, you're not the same person as you were then. But there might be something of a theme that wants to be revisited and be spiraled up again. And so, yeah. And obviously as well, like there's going to be other things going on in your chart at the same time. So you need to do a full birth chart consultation to go deeper, and this is just one kind of like fractal of a lot of things that are going on all at the same time. But it is quite a nice thing to track. It is a trackable thing, and I've found it trackable in my own experience. So I'm going to leave it today for this week's report and make it mostly to do with that, even though, of course, there are other planets moving and there are other big shifts always going on. There are other dances in the sky. But if you listen and go back in time and feel that this resonates, please let me know in the comments if you find that you can join the dots and it makes sense, because that, I think, is the beauty of astrology. When it becomes alive is when you do that joining of dots and you're like, oh God, I see how this works. So do let me know. Thank you so much for listening. I'm enjoying sharing like this with you. It's nice to hear back from some of you that you're enjoying it too. So please, yeah, give me a little comment, tell a friend, like it, and I'll see you next week on the other side of this very watery, emotional, dreamy, intuitive, but somewhat practical, let's also get our ducks in a row period. Thanks. Bye bye.